And there's that huge investment they've made in barrels, French oak, I think.
Was it French?
I just that huge barrel route now that's.
Yeah, I can't remember if they spent that money on new French oak, Steve. I can't remember.
It was new French oak.
It'll tell you it'll tell you in the glass, no question.
But as Lou was saying, I mean, the other, the dominant impression from the region is dry and so hot.
On that trip, we actually arrived. Unusually, we arrived early. I think it was the only time we'd ever got anywhere early. And so they have these huge gates that are sort of 15 feet tall, and they were firmly locked during lunchtime, which is a 2-hour minimum experience. So I remember waiting in the car to get inside, and geez, it was blisteringly hot. It was extraordinary kind of heat. I've always thought that I understood heat, having lived in Africa. It reminds me of that sort of African heat. It's just that dry, definitely not what we think of as heat in Asia. There's no humidity at all.
And it comes. I think it obviously does come through in the expression of the wines.
Yeah.
And it can be. I mean, Nero d'Avola can be. And we certainly drank some on our trip. And not a bit, over extracted, or flabby. Just a huge, not terribly evolved fruit bomb. But I think what makes Morgante interesting is that they've found a way of taming all of that, into something that's much more elegant.
Yeah, they somehow seem to, just as a sort of classic house style with Morgante, and Don Antonio in particular, is they seem to harness that sort of voluptuous fruit component of Nero and sculpture it into something that's far more architecturally sound than the average Nero. It's the one thing the other thing that I always look for as a marker in the Antonio is that wet tobacco. And I'm interested to see if that's showing at all in the noses. So you guys reckon that on the phenolics, they're all pretty much the same?
The first three, I think we'd better do them three at a time.
Okay.
And I mean, looking at all 6 in a row is going to be a bit hard. So if people could just charge their 04s, 06 and 08s and start having a look at those. Again, please, anyone, jump in at any time if you violently disagree and if you don't. In terms of the nose, you're getting that typical cherry thing that you get off good ripe Nero d'Avola, black olives, that sort of dark earth. It's sort of, but the cherries are black cherries. They're not red cherries. They're black. They're black notes both on the nose and on the palate. But if you look at all three of these older wines, honestly, maybe it's my nose, and please, like I said, anyone jump in, but I find them so similar on the nose, they're almost indistinguishable. They really are.
Aidan's making the point that Aidan, you say that nose, it's slightly out of condition. Is it a funkiness? I'm just, because we were quite careful about opening these today. Certainly, they're not going to be oxidative. So, one of the 4 bottles might be displaying something that's not in peak condition. How would you describe that 6 that you say is out of condition, Aidan? See if I can unmute him. I can't unmute him. Anyway,
right, well,
his point was the nose.
So yeah, with my wife here, who's giving me my tasting notes.
Yeah, no, the noses of all of them are excellent. I mean, I'm looking forward to moving on to the palate, but 06 does have a very slight sort of almost too raisiny. I think it probably hasn't been stored properly. I wouldn't say it's off or anything like that. It's not that bad, but just purely based on the notes, I'm just getting a bit too much cooked.
So is it leaning into a fortified kind of thing?
Is it leaning? No, yeah, it is, but it's not because it's supposed to. I feel like it's just based on the nose.
All right.
It probably wasn't. Maybe in the storage is
Right.
anyway. Let me progress onto the palette and then we can verify.
Al's saying that he's finding the 8 a bit funky, but a bit of a bitter
Oh,
nose.
06. 06.
Yeah, I know. There's another comment that's come into the chat on 08.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's also showing a funkiness. I'm just wondering if it just needs air, because in the times that I've drunk these Morgantes in the past, that's been a big thing. Just they do need to settle down. Collins 6 is okay, so it might just be bottle variation.
No, there's some bottle variation. I mean, I bottled these this morning, or decanted them this morning. With we rejected a couple of bottles because they weren't up to scratch. So all these bottles went through an initial tasting. Now, over the course of the day, certainly there'll be some. We poured 24 different bottles, so there's going to be some slight variation in the older ones in particular. That's for sure. But the corks were in excellent shape, and in fact, I can show you. That's the 04 cork, if you can see it.
Right. That's in
Really
good
good.
nick. Jesus.
Really good shape, and that was typical of all of them. So the corks themselves, I mean, on the 06, let's move off. Let's taste these ones.
Taste them,
Let's go to the palate now. And
Yeah.
let's see if the could it be that one of the bottles out of the 4 are a little bit more tired than the others? Very possible. A lot of age. So go to the 04. Good acid, fresh, still quite lively, balanced.
What I should have done, actually, benefit of hindsight, I should have put in the average temperatures in the sub-region for the year. That would have been interesting, just to see how the sugar components of these 6 different vintages were different. I should have done. Might have been useful to.
Like I said, I think you'll find that the temperatures in Sicily, especially around Agrigento, being so close to the sea, very, very stable.
Right.
Very stable. Hot summers, mild winters.
Right.
With that African Saharan blast of air from time to time, like when we were there, but that wasn't great picking time, so it doesn't really affect them. It was beyond that. But they get the temperature. So comments on the 04, again, I'm getting a lot of black olive and black cherries is what I get most of.
Mm-hmm.
The acids there, the fruits are good, nice, long length. A lot to like about it.
It'll last a lot longer too. Tannins are still in very good shape.
Tannins are still there. They're not aggressive. They've integrated. I wouldn't be in a hurry to store it much longer. I think it's about as good as it's going to get. It's not going to fall over, but I don't see why you'd wait to drink this wine.
Yeah, so basically at cruising altitude in terms of quality at this stage. Right.
You're not going to get it any better now by keeping it in the fridge. It's done its integration, it's done all the development, and it's a pleasure to drink. So moving on to the controversial 06, let's have a look at this. And let's see how it's going. Hopefully Aidan and
the colour's good.
Can again on the nose, my 06 is identical to the 04 basically. Maybe a little bit more.
I'm pretty certain that that's the first year that Morgante got 3 Gambara Rosso. I think it was the first time that it pulled that out, and it not. I don't think I've seen it since. I think it might be the only one.
Listen, a little bit of a note of licorice MSC type thing happening in this one, which isn't in the first one.
Right.
The acid level is higher, in my view, fresher. The tannins are not quite as integrated as in the first one, so it's unmistakably Italian in the way it's structured. with its tannic structure being much more pronounced, put it that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's that note of aniseed in there that wasn't in the first one. But I'd be interested to see, hear other people's comments, and especially the ones whose wine wasn't as fresh on the nose as it possibly should have been.
Well, Aiden's reckons that the phenolics on the 6 are playing out on the palate for him as well,
Okay.
which is interesting. Haosheng, did the change in label from IGT to DOC affect winemaking? I would say no.
No, it didn't. Definitely didn't. They changed over, and they also changed over to Riserva later, and that was just an appellation change.
Right.
Because you'll notice that the first 4 bottles, I think, are not labelled Riserva, but it's now called Riserva. So actually, it happened after these. It's now called a Riserva, but the actual winemaking is precisely the same. So should we move on to the 08?
Right. I'm seeing some, I think it was Aiden who's saying he's getting tertiary animal on the nose of the 8. So a bit of reduction, a bit of reductive component to it. Aiden, is it blowing off, or is it something that's retained after a while in the glass?
It is slightly.
Jacob's giving big quids to the 06. Yeah, agreeing with Lou that it's fresher than the 4.
I don't know whether Aiden got the dud batch or something, but the 08 on the palate is definitely different to the 06.
Right.
Reductive. I'm not getting any reductive. Cow's ass. When you're talking about reductive, you're talking about that sort of cow's ass.
Well, he described it as tertiary animal. So I'm thinking barnyard. Yeah.
Barnyard.
Nope, not getting that here.
Okay. I guess that's the thing when we're looking at wines, multiple bottles of wines of this kind of age, they are by definition going to be different. That curve just opens up after a certain period.
So Aiden's just written here though that he's getting it on the nose but not on the palate. Is that right?
Okay.
Sorry, are you talking about 08?
Yeah.
Yeah.
08 is really, really lovely on the palate.
But the
It's so far out of 04 to 08, 08's the most balanced and in best condition, I think.
But you're saying that the nose is still a bit barnyardy, yeah?
But that's not a bad thing.
No.
No, not
Compared
necessarily.
to the others, it just has that. Compared to the others, it
Yeah,
just
so because my glass hasn't got any reductiveness in it whatsoever. It really doesn't.
on the palate, you're not getting too much of that. But on the nose, initially, when you're smelling all of them, that 08 had a bit more.
Okay, I've had these open for an hour now, and
We haven't.
And I'm doing them straight from the bottle rather than from the sample glasses. So I suspect there's quite a bit of variation.
Can it be a
also.
difference?
It'll change a lot in the glass at this age. I certainly will.
Well, it's an interesting segue now to look at the second set, because Haosheng's drinking a little bit faster than us, and he reckons that the later vintages are following the style of the earlier ones, but more easily accessible at these younger years. Do I get that right, Haosheng? Is that what you're saying? The later vintages elsewhere, like. Oh, no, sorry. No, you're saying they're in a similar style.
Hi, Robert.
Yeah, hi, mate.
No, I'm saying that one should expect the 04 to taste much older than the 13.
Got it, yes.
And if 13 was made in the same style as 04,
right,
I think it would be more tannic, more close, the grip, would be tighter. But it's not. I mean, there's some verticals where you 10 years difference. There's a big difference in the younger wine compared to the 04, but the 04 is approachable. And in fact, the 13 is almost just as approachable, which you don't expect from a wine that's about 10 years younger.
Yeah. Steve and Lou, when we were there, it was all getting a bit hazy for me, but I think they opened a very old bottle of this.
We had.
It was back in the 80s or
we had some. Yeah, you're right. We had some 80s and we had some 90s.
Yeah.
And I think we went all the way up to 2010.
Okay. Because by that stage, we actually so much wine.
But we didn't have every single vintage because they didn't have every single vintage.
Right.
But they did have some old 80s stuff.
Yeah.
Which we tried and we thought,
yeah.
It was a bit over.
The fruit had definitely, it was more leather and armchair and that's,
Oh, okay. But it's
those aged, the fruit was definitely a little tired in the very old ones.
Right. But the point that
the reason why Nero d'Avola is not a Bordeaux.
But the point Shang's making is super interesting to me, that they would have had to have tinkered with their winemaking approach to retain a complete similarity in style over a 10-year period.
Yeah.
Something must have evolved, if we take out the question of climate change, because it's always been bloody hot there. So let's assume that it's not climate change. And also let's assume that, I don't think things change very rapidly in Morgante. I get that feeling, they're going to make it in a classic style, right? So I'm super interested to see why. That would have been a really good question to ask about. If there's anything that's changed in the back room that we don't know about.
Well, they did go from, making those big contract wines generally during the 90s,
right,
and then switching over to, but if I remember correctly, Carmelo was at pains to say that the Don Antonio was always the flagship for the family, and they always stuck to
right,
tradition, one third new oak every year, and
right,
rolling it over. Right,
it could have been something as simple as regrafting vines. So, maybe a couple of these vintages have seen newer, more, ferocious bunches and what have you. That could also have an effect.
All right, so maybe. So looking at these next three, I've got to say my 2010 is funky.
Funky.
On the nose. I don't know if other people have got a funky one, but I mean, on the palate, it's fine. So Aidan and Mrs. Aidan, maybe I've got this batch one. It's really funky. It's got that Vegemite smell that you get. That sort of, some people like it. I don't. If it's a barnyard smell, it's not a barnyard I've ever been in. It's it's more like a Vegemite factory. For those who know what Vegemite is.
Walmart and Bovril for the rest of the world.
Definitely got a touch of Bovril in there, that's for
sure.
Because also on the palate, it's not so evident on the palate, it's more evident on the nose. So I don't know if other people are getting that on the 10.
Yeah, Alice is agreeing with you on the Vegemite issue.
Oh, it's Alice, is it? Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. But no, so this is the thing. When we poured them this morning, there was no note of that because I'm very susceptible to that note.
Yeah.
And so this has come out during the course of the day. In terms of, did they reduce the new oak percentage or use more stainless steel vats? Now, as far as I'm aware, Shang, they do a third. 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, no steel.
Yeah, those old vats are just redundant, aren't they? They don't. They were at pains to point out they didn't use them at all anymore.
Yeah.
They are huge, massive industrial things, and they're all empty, I think.
Yeah. So that 2010, is it looking is it sort of mirroring the quality of Italy in general in 10, or is Sicily
Oh,
just such a different animal?
There's just no point in comparing Tuscany to Sicily. It's just it's a different way.
But qualitatively, is it standing out in any way?
No, these are
Okay.
very consistent, which is what
Okay.
you get out of Italy.
Yeah.
It's very consistent.
I drank a couple of 2000 and a few 2010s when I was in Italy this over several months this summer. I got to say the 10s are just like those Central Italian 10s are just, I didn't have a bad one. I mean, everything is just drinking gorgeously. It almost doesn't matter who made it. I mean, they're all, they're just, if you see one, just buy it and drink it because they're incredible. But I think Lou's right. I mean, it's, that miracle year in 2010 for Brunello, which was also extremely, good for all of the Sangiovese in the Central Italy. I don't think you get anything of that in this, do you? It doesn't stand out.
Yeah.
No.
Well, the
I mean,
one
it's
comment
nothing wrong with
that
it.
one of the Tuscan winemakers that we had online over the last couple of months said, if your 2010 in Tuscany is no good, get out of the business. Which I thought was quite an astute comment to make.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, great, years come in and out, and you can have a great year and it fades away. These things just get better and better and better. The 10 is just, it's like, say, if it's Brunello, if it's a Chianti, I mean, if it's even as a Montepulciano from a good house, they're all just amazing. I mean, all like, wow, every single one.
Anyway, for me, on the 10, that the Vegemite thing on the nose, I don't like. It's not something that I particularly like in a wine, no matter where it's from. Not so prevalent on the palate. The palate is sort of,
But as you say, it's very similar to the other ones. It's not like it doesn't stand out.
black cherry, olives, dark earth type flavors, very consistent with the other ones. But to me, the nose on the 10, at least of the bottle that I have, I'm not a fan. That's not the style of wine that I like. My wife here, Diane, doesn't mind that sort of stuff.
Right.
Stefano,
I'm fine with it.
he's fine with it, but then again, he's a strange man.
But the 10 that we entered, we didn't detect it.
No. All right, so moving on. So have other people getting the same sort of notes that I'm getting from my particular bottle? Because again, when we poured them this morning, there was no sign of that at all. And I didn't, and my bottle's a different one. I've done a bottle of each tonight. So are other people getting that on their 2010? I guess I'll never know.
Yeah.
All right. So,
Well, Rob, I mean, Nero d'Avola, obviously big, strong wine. You want to have food with this. What would you serve with a Nero d'Avola?
Ragu. I suppose that's too northern. Some
No, in
kind
terms of food.
that's what you're saying, ragu.
Ragu.
Yeah, I'm thinking of boar or something like that. I kind of
You're
like.
not going to find a boar in Sicily,
Yeah.
nor a virgin, all right? So if you're not fishing, you're out of luck.
Both are off the menu.
The cinghiale, the wild boar, are just they've the last few years they've just gone up hugely in numbers. There's a ton of
Really?
meat around. Yeah, no, sure. There's in fact they've extended the season to try and get the numbers down. So there's going to be plenty of wild boar ragu around.
Because that's old man Cinzano's favorite occupation is shooting boar. So we probably won't be able to get much attention off him.
Oh, the count, yeah.
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 He loves it.
They've extended there's so many feral ones in our region. They've extended the season. So, all right. So something with a big strong flavor.
Yeah.
Red meats.
Yeah, I'd say
Anything
any kind of serious cheese, any sort of very goat's cheese or something like that that's got some acid to it would really dance around this sort of fruit. It's something that I'd look at definitely. If you guys compare the 10, 12, and 13, it makes sense that the 13 is going to be the freshest, right? Or is it?
I'm going to just get into the 13 now. Just hold on. Okay. Clean those.
Haosheng's comment on pricing, Haosheng, basically they just line priced it out of the cellar for us. It represents really good pricing. In fact, after 13, we've got 4 or 5 more recent vintages, it goes down yet again to $55 a bottle. And then Colin's question on production levels, I don't think it's a lot, Colin. I can't access it from here, but we're not talking big numbers.
No, I'd have to look it up, but I think it's 20,000 bottles or something. I think it's
even
not,
that surprises.
Large. Yeah, it's not large.
Haosheng, it's interesting. Haosheng, it's an interesting point that you make. I mean, Etna Rosso is becoming so expensive. Some would argue it's becoming the new Barolo of Italy in terms of pricing. And the wine geeks are just OCD about what's going on there. This represents exceptionally good value. In fact, I don't think one can get anything off that bloody volcano at $59 a bottle that you'd be interested in drinking.
No, not anymore.
Yeah.
Not anymore. I mean, the Nero Mascalese now is just so popular globally. So undeservedly so, in my view, but that's another matter. Getting back to this 13, quite grippy on the palate. Plenty of stuffing to fill anyone's bra. I think the 12 is preferable.
Yeah.
Oh, you agree, do you?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, okay.
Definitely. Much.
Napoleon here agrees with me, so we're halfway there. My wife agrees, which is very rare.
The 13's good too.
The 13 has got it all together, and if anything, just needs a bit more time. Frankly. But the one thing, the body of work, it's very obvious that they're all from the same vineyard. It's very obvious, right? You can line up Codestinel and see the same lineage going through it. This is a family thing off the same plot. And I should let everyone know that the actual winemaker is Dr. Riccardo Cottarella, who's the owner of Falesco. It makes wine quite famously for quite a few shops out there, which we've tasted before. But Cottarella has been making Morgante for over 25 years. So the fact that you've got a consistent style is hardly surprising.
Yeah.
He's been making the stuff for 25 years.
Right?
Yeah. So,
and the geography and the sunshine means that you get a very consistent level of.
You're getting the same weather, same grapes, same vineyard, same winemaker. That's what. And he hasn't changed the mix.
So having said that, what grabs me when you're talking about the 06 showing fennel, because you guys didn't pick it up in any of the other 5 vintages. So that's super interesting for me. That can
it's got a note,
It can only be a factor of weather because everything else is the same. There's nothing else that's maybe they macerated for a longer or shorter period or something. I don't know. But it's really interesting when you take out climate and all the other usual variables, you start to drill down into the basics of what defines these wine variances. It's very interesting for me.
It's an interesting body of work. Interesting. For those who don't know, Morgante is world famous for the fact that they deal in no other grape except Nero d'Avola. They don't do anything except Nero d'Avola.
And never have.
No. And so they actually make a white from Nero d'Avola. And they've started making a rosé from Nero d'Avola, which we've just brought in actually. But the white is a weird thing.
What do they call it? Bianco d'Avola? Surely not.
Yeah, Bianco.
They call it Bianco d'Avola.
Morgante Bianco. And so they take it off the skins and just make the Blanc de Noir, basically.
Right.
But not as a sparkling wine, but it's a flat wine, but it's a
Right.
Blanc de Noir. But they've just made a rosé. I haven't tried it yet. We just brought it in. It's just arrived. I'm curious to see what they've done, because again, Cottarella is such a master when it comes to winemaking that to see him work with the same grapes and making a different type of wine is going to be interesting. It's going to be really interesting to see what he's done.
Jacob points out that we had the 11 2 years ago, subsequently sold out. Jacob, we did that in a blind. It wasn't all Morgante. What was it? As a blind lineup. Can't remember.
No, sorry, this was not part of your. It was at a private wine tasting,
okay.
So nothing to do with this, but it was amazing.
Yeah, that's interesting to hear. It really is.
Yeah, I mean, looking at these things, what I think you can say, the consistency across the board is very, very obvious. The stamp of sameness is very, very clear. There's some vintage variation, but not a lot.
Not
frankly.
a lot. Yeah.
Not a lot. The 04s to me are the most drinkable right now. And I wouldn't, if I had those, I wouldn't be holding on to them. I'd be drinking them. The 06 has got a slightly more spicy. Maybe it was a slightly hotter year.
Yep.
Interesting that it got 3 Gambero Rossi, but no, it got Gamberi Rosso, but didn't go to the Western critics. So interesting. Anyway, I'll have to ask Carmelo why that was.
Yeah.
He'll just shrug his shoulders and tell me to piss off. Anyway, that's fine. The one for me, the one that I don't particularly, I'm not enamored of is the 10. I think maybe it's just the bottle that I've got, but the corks are all in fantastic shape. I've got to tell you that much. But it's obviously a wine that can easily sell her for 15 years, easily, at cruising level. Would you take him 30 years? No. Why bother?
No.
Yeah.
Why bother? They're not made for that, right?
And also,
so
I wonder if those Etna Rossos have that similar component. They're not. If do you reckon they're also going to be varietals that are wines to drink over a 10 to 20 year period instead of a,
well, yeah, you and I went through a bucket load of the Nero Mascalese when we were there. That's the, and to me, it's the Pinot Noir of Etna.
Definitely, yeah.
Right, in terms of phenolics, in terms of structure.
Oh, the texture is the thing that blew me away.
Yeah, in terms of texture, but has it got 20 years in the tank? I doubt it. I don't think it had that sort of weight and that sort of gravitas to it. And the same with these wines. I think that 10 to 15 year window, that's probably where you want to be.
Right.
Taking them out to 20 years in exceptional vintages, yeah, fine, but you're not going to get anything better in the glass for having given it an extra 5 years in the cellar.
Sure.
In my view.
Yeah. So let's do a wine of the night vote. So if just put yes. Anyone want to vote for 04 for wine of the night? Just put yes in the chat box.
Close.
And no double voting. We're not in Arizona.
Oh, come on.
Only one vote. Couples get one each. Because I love to see when they vote against each other. It's my favorite thing. So we got a yes for 4. We got a yes from the Aiden's household. Another one for 4. Another one for 4. Okay, so 6. I've got 1 for 6. El, you voted for 4, right? Not for 6.
Oh, no, 6. Wait.
Yeah. So any other calls on 6?
Yeah, go 6.
Go 6.
Hold on. One more dies 06.
All right.
4.
Okay, El, I got you on 4. Votes for 08. 6 and 8 from Diane. Okay. She signs my checks. Got to give her extra votes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the wisest thing to do, I've got to tell you.
Yeah.
Signs your check, she steals mine.
So Celine's voting for 13. Half point for
okay.
Scotland. You're killing me.
Well, the brightest, right?
James is voting for 6. Any more votes for 8? 2 votes for 12.
2 votes for 12. I like it. I like the 12. I think the 12 is outstanding.
Alice, I got you on the 8. So no votes for 10. Not seeing much love there. Any votes? Any votes for 13? 5 votes for 12. So Jacob, how are you getting to your 5 votes? Jeez, have I got a voting audit committee that wants to meet you?
Again, Rob, so Steve here is making a valid point.
Yeah.
But as we've been sitting here pontificating, in the glass, these things are changing.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. Different notes are coming out.
Right.
The 10 is less funky, still funky, but less funky.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So,
well, it kind of parlays into what you guys have all been saying tonight, because joint top winners are 6 and 12, not counting for some scrupulous overcount bidding from somebody, and second and second place is jointly between 4 and 8. So that's really interesting. Smaller votes for 13, but it's an evolutionary thing, right? So
yeah.
And there is something wrong with the 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the 10's obviously the least popular, which is
Extraordinary.
Those guys who've been there, I'm looking at some photos of this. It all looks pretty dry, but any comments on the soil?
on the soil,
Yeah.
don't know.
Poorish. Certainly not. So it didn't. You felt like you were in like the Mexican desert or something.
With almost as much chili.
Oh, Jesus. Carmelo's here.
Where is he?
Buongiorno,
Carmelo, come
mi
stai?
vedete?
Non ancora, no. Ti sentiamo?
Sentire sì, ma vedere no. Non capisco perché. Allora, ecco, forse ho capito.
Well, what we should do, there's a few questions that we should put to Carmelo straight off the bat. We've got a little bit of time. So the first question was...
Hold on, he's trying to make himself seen. Hold on.
Yeah. I've just pinned him, so as soon as something's visible...
Pinned him?
Yeah, so...
The first thing to do is to buy him a watch.
Mi vedete o no? Io non vedo nulla ancora. Non capisco per quale motivo.
No, ti sentiamo, ma non ti vediamo.
Non vedi. Allora. Vediamo un attimo.
So Lou, maybe if you can ask Carmelo first up about any kind of changes in winemaking.
All right.
That'll be a good one to ask him.
Carmelo?
Sì?
Difatti abbiamo cominciato un'ora fa, allora...
quindi in anticipo. L'appuntamento comunque era per ora, per le 13 ore italiana.
Ecco, abbiamo sbagliato, si vede. Dunque, ormai abbiamo bevuto tutti 6, però abbiamo qualche inchiesta.
Sì, dimmi. Mentre io provo ad abilitare il video, se ci riesco.
Va bene.
Però parla, dimmi, posso parlare.
Nel frattempo, la prima cosa, la produzione quanto è? Quante bottiglie ogni anno?
Allora, di Don Antonio siamo 30.000 bottiglie l'anno.
All right, 30,000 bottles a year of Don Antonio. E dunque è sempre stato il dottore Riccardo Cottarella che lo fa, no?
Sì, Riccardo Cottarella è sempre stato con noi da quando abbiamo iniziato, dal primo anno, dal 1998.
So Cottarella has made it since 1998, the first year that they made the Don Antonio. Nel produzione, durante gli anni, è cambiato il sistema di fare questo Don Antonio? Cioè con l'acciaio o cambiando il legno che si usa?
No, in realtà la fermentazione è sempre stata in acciaio inox e poi l'affinamento nelle barrique di rovere francese, di Allier e Tronchet. In realtà non abbiamo mai cambiato metodologia, non abbiamo fatto delle variazioni al metodo di produzione. No.
Va bene.
No.
Okay. So Rob, they do the fermentation, the original fermentation in stainless steel. And then it's all put into, as we said before, French oak. And the style has not changed since 1998. It's been made consistently in the same style all the way through.
Some of the maceration.
Oh, fuck. Really?
Macerantinio.
Sorry, you got to worry about the people I invite into my home sometimes. Jeez. Ok. Dunque, Camillo,
Dimmi.
il sistema di maturazione è cambiato durante gli anni o è sempre lo stesso?
Il sistema di?
Di fermentazione.
Di fermentazione no. Facciamo sempre la fermentazione a temperatura controllata, non c'è una variazione nella metodologia di produzione. No. Sempre uguale. Magari questo ragionamento non può sembrare, come dire, appetibile. Spesso quando dico questa cosa dicono: ma com'è possibile? Tutti gli altri produttori ogni anno cambiano. Se vuoi
si cambierà sempre qualcosa, no? Questo bisogna aspettarsi. Ma dunque, parliamo adesso delle vendemmie. Noi abbiamo qui adesso il 2004, 6, 8, 10, 12 e 13. Dunque, abbiamo bevuto, provato tutte le vendemmie ormai. Voglio chiedere qualcosa. Con il 2004, diciamo, per me è assolutamente pronto da bere. Nel suo opinione?
Aspetta un attimo che lo assaggio insieme così in diretta perché voglio...
All right, so Carmelo is now trying the 04 for us. I just want to get his feedback on...
And then another question from Jacob about how much of it is new oak. I think you might have said 20%.
A third.
Okay.
So what did he say on maceration?
Allora, secondo me è abbastanza pronto.
I told you to fuck off. Right? Sorry, I have to deal with this English.
Succede qualcosa che ho fatto qualche errore?
Sì.
Dunque,
adesso
assaggi il 2004 ora?
Sì, lo sto assaggiando insieme con voi.
Va bene. Dunque, so Carmelo's having the 04. For those of you who have still got some wine in your glass, we'll start this again very briefly. I'll run through this very quickly, all right, Rob? Sorry, mate. But like I said, we'll buy him a watch. Yeah. Dunque, 2004, commenti?
Allora, sì, è abbastanza pronto, è un vino abbastanza elegante, però la caratteristica un po' del Nero d'Avola è che se noi anche oggi assaggiamo l'ultima annata che è in distribuzione, che è il 2018, è un vino che il Nero d'Avola di per sé, sì, è un vino molto ampio, molto complesso, ma allo stesso tempo anche quando è giovane è abbastanza pronto da bere.
Right, aspetta. So Camillo is saying that the actual variety of Nero d'Avola, one of the characteristics of it is whether it's old or new, it's always very, very approachable. The actual structure of the wine itself and the wine that's been made from this grape variety makes it that, whether he's saying that even the 2018 that he's just bottled is very approachable. And he's finding that with the 2004, the word that we always hate is elegant, but ready to drink now. But as a contraposition, the 2018 is equally ready to drink. Avanti.
Sì, il Nero d'Avola, come dicevo, è un vino che può essere anche abbastanza elegante e anche molto giovane. In questo 2004 sto notando che è un po' variato il colore. Ripeto, io quando assaggio i vini di annate più vecchie, secondo me vanno rapportati anche al modo di bere di ognuno di noi. Per gli italiani questi vini vanno bene, ma un po' meno per i francesi, cioè nel senso che il francese è più abituato a bere vini di una certa età, gli italiani no. È una cosa molto soggettiva, secondo me.
Aspetta. So for the 2004, Camillo is saying that basically the ageability, and you can see in the color that the age, it's reached an age of maturation now that he's saying that Italians in general, unlike the French, try to make wines that are going to be drinkable over a relatively compressed period of time, so that in his view, the 2004 is in that window now, which is what we concluded earlier. Va bene, Camillo?
Sì.
Proviamo il 2006.
Comunque lo trovo abbastanza, con dei profumi solo variati, lo trovo abbastanza elegante il 2004. Era da tempo che non lo assaggiavo.
Sì, dunque per noi abbiamo deciso che questo vino sarebbe proprio pronto adesso per bere, proprio adatto per bere nel suo zona proprio adesso.
Sì, sono d'accordo.
Pronto da bere, non c'è indicazione da tenerlo per un altro 5 anni, perché è pronto proprio adesso.
No, abbastanza pronto. Sì,
Sì,
sono d'accordo.
Sì. So in terms of 2004, he's just saying yes, that it's ready now. No point in holding it much longer. It's in its zone right now. Let's move on to 2006. Dunque, 2006.
Andiamo subito il 2006.
Sì.
Ask him about that fennel thing. I'm super interested. If it's a note that he finds it is. Yeah.
Per il 2006, Camillo, abbiamo sentito una nota di finocchio.
Finocchio?
Sì, del finocchio nel saggiando il vino. C'era come un piccolo nota di finocchio, che per me è molto interessante, ma lo hai sentito prima di questo o no?
No, è la prima volta che sento questo commento.
Ok.
Lo sto assaggiando anche in diretta con voi.
He's
saying
dissed you.
that's not a note that he's picked up before, so basically I'm an idiot.
Yeah, he's dissed you. Love it. I'm so glad I kept this recording going.
Yeah. No, but I did pick it up. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm using the wrong.
Maybe so let's ask him about 08, because that certainly in terms of what people were tasting got equal votes with 04.
Ok, before I do that, dunque nel 2006 allora, per me e per noi lo abbiamo trovato più fresco del 2004, più sottile. No, difatti c'era più acido nella struttura. È un vino più fresco, insomma, del 2004.
Probabilmente c'è un po' di acidità in più che dà più freschezza rispetto al 2004. Magari dipende anche negli anni, magari c'è più una stabilizzazione dei tartrati in bottiglia, quindi magari il 2004 diciamo è un po' più morbido perché l'acidità un po' si...
Okay.
Sì, senz'altro il 2006 è più fresco, c'è un'acidità più spinta ed è più fresco.
Okay, so you're saying that 2006 actually was higher acid, so that's why it's fresher. Yeah, whereas 2004 lower acid, so therefore softer, more subtle in the glass. But yeah, 2006 is very fresh, higher level of acid, which is what we found.
Ma Lo puoi notare anche dal colore che è un po' più vivace rispetto al 2004, ma sono 2 anni di vendemmia, più avanti, questo è normale.
And you can see in the color that it's more vivacious, it's brighter than the 04. E dunque, come è meglio tempo da bere questo 2006, sarebbe quando? Adesso? O
Secondo me,
aspettare?
guarda, secondo me tutti, anche fino a quando arriveremo al 2013, ti dico che secondo me vanno tutti bene da bere anche adesso. Poi dipende anche, secondo me, ripeto, non solo è una cosa personale, ma dipende anche dal cibo a cui viene abbinato. Questa è la cosa fondamentale.
Certo.
Questo è il rapporto, cioè il rapporto cibo-vino, secondo me è cosa indispensabile, che va a determinare se va bene o non va bene.
Okay, certo. So in terms of the 2006, Carmelo's saying, I asked him whether, what's the best drinking window for this wine, and he's saying really, with Nero d'Avola, take your pick. It's up to you. But he emphasizes it's really all about the food that you want to have it with.
Right.
The 2006 for him is perfectly drinking now, but so is the 2013 and the 18. That's the point.
Yeah.
With Nero d'Avola, there's such a wide breadth of drinking window. He's just saying, do what you need to do because the wine is ready for your own personal taste. But it's all about the food that you put it with. Okay, so move on to 2008.
Right.
Dunque, 2008, Carmelo.
L'ho appena assaggiato. Il 2008 mi sembra al naso un po' più floreale, cioè molto più, non floreale, forse ho sbagliato, c'è più una nota più di affumicato in più nel 2008. Ma stavo pensando alle barrique, le barrique sono sempre uguali, sarà forse una questione di annata. Lo vedo un po' meno pieno di colore, cioè un po' meno colore rispetto al 2006, però lo vedo con una nota più di legno, anche se diciamo...
Interesting. So Carmelo, on the nose, he's actually saying that the 2008 is giving much more oak influence than the other two, right? So he's getting a smoky note, right? So clearly there's on the nose it evokes different commentary from different people, I think, because I didn't get any smokiness at all, but and there's that barnyard thing that people have mentioned. Assaggiandolo?
Ma anche al gusto vedo che è un po' più complesso rispetto al 2006.
Okay, so the bottle that he's having is lacking a little bit in flavor, according to him.
Forse con una nota...
Clearly bottle variation.
Forse una nota un po' più dolciastra rispetto al 2006.
Okay, so he's finding it slightly sweeter than the 06, for want of a better description. That's his, but there's clearly some bottle variation in this stuff that's going on. What other questions did you have for him on these first?
Soil. Oh, I think James asked about the actual soil.
Oh, it's dust.
Yeah. Martian.
Yeah, it's Mars. James, it's Mars. It really is.
When Elon gets to Mars, that's the first thing he's going to plant is Nero d'Avola.
He's going to plant Nero d'Avola. Ok. Andiamo al 2010, che per noi abbiamo trovato che il naso, cioè il profumo, era un po' unico, diciamo.
Pulito?
Non pulito.
Non pulito il 2010?
Sì, nel profumo, nel naso.
Ma guarda, rispetto al 2008 è meno profumato. Nel 2008 mi è sembrato più profumi, più 2010 un po' meno, senz'altro.
Okay. So the bottle he's having is finding that the 2010 is less aromatic than 2008.
Però
Sì.
Volevo dirti anche una cosa, su queste degustazioni dobbiamo stare attenti tutti, anche a un discorso dei tappi della singola bottiglia,
Sì. Certo.
che possono dare delle, come dire, delle sfumature diverse tra il vino che assaggiate voi e il vino che ho assaggiato anch'io.
Senz'altro. Sì. Questo si capisce. So he's making the point that not only tasting across the globe and in different time zones, but the fact that if you're tasting a 10-year-old bottle of wine or 11-year-old bottle of wine that's been open for 3 hours versus open for 1 hour, clearly it's going to be a big difference. And so the fact that there's variation in the glass and the experience that you're tasting is not surprising.
Comunque io, la mia bottiglia, non vedo problemi particolari sul profumo, cioè lo vedo abbastanza pulito, quindi forse è meglio che magari in seguito ho assaggiato un'altra bottiglia, perché è strano quello che mi dici tu. Non è un difetto, capisco che non è una critica nei confronti del vino, però secondo me andrebbe riveduta questa bottiglia. Se mi dici così c'è stato sicuramente un problema o nel tappo o in qualche...
No, il tappo, tutti i tappi sono proprio perfetti. Difatti,
perfetto.
Abbiamo usato 24 bottiglie, ho messo da una parte una bottiglia solo. Anyway, he was saying that in terms of the bottle he's having, the nose is very clean and pure. I was just saying that that's not the experience we've had amongst a couple of our tastings here tonight. And he's just saying, well, again, the bottle variation wouldn't surprise him completely. And we were talking about the corks. Just told him then that the corks are tremendous. The ones that I've seen are just fantastic. Yeah, and we only threw away one bottle on the with a cork tape problem this morning, or two. Ok, 2012, Carmelo.
Allora, andiamo al 2012.
I like the sound effects. You can actually hear him pouring it into his glass.
Ma i partecipanti a questa tua degustazione sono tutti amici, appassionati di vino, giornalisti, non so.
No, non giornalisti, no. Sono clienti che bevono e comprano Morgante e che hanno avuto l'opportunità di bere questi 6 bottiglie in questa zona con i tuoi commenti. Non ci sono giornalisti, non ci sono...
Ah, ok, sono appassionati.
Sì.
Allora, il 2012 lo sto assaggiando insieme con voi, ha una nota secondo me un po' più... c'è ancora un po'... bisogna un po' secondo me aspettare per berlo. È un po' più acido, un po' più astringente rispetto al 2010. Sicuramente avrà una struttura polifenolica un po' più complessa rispetto agli altri vini che abbiamo assaggiato.
Okay. So he's saying it's a little bit more complex in terms of structure than in 2010. Again, good drinking now, or you can wait. Up to you, up to your personal taste. But again, per noi abbiamo.
Voi invece?
Per noi abbiamo deciso che il 2012 era il secondo migliore vino di tutti. Il primo era il 2006. 2006, poi 2012, poi 2004.
Aspetta che riassaggio il 2006.
Sì.
Sì, 2006.
Carmelo, finalmente proviamo a assaggiare il 2013.
Andiamo al 2013. Aspetta un attimo che assaggio nuovamente il 12.
Dunque, commenti,
sto facendo...
altri commenti sul 2012?
No, L'unica cosa che abbiamo fatto nel 2012, se avete notato, abbiamo fatto un piccolo restyling all'etichetta, che abbiamo la scritta Morgante di sotto è diversa rispetto alle
Sì, ho
versioni
visto che
precedenti.
è bianco invece del rosso, sì.
Sì, è un po' più moderna, quelle erano un po' le etichette. Cioè, io a guardare oggi queste etichette vecchie mi viene da ridere, sembrano ridicole, però per l'epoca era quella un po' l'impostazione dei grafici, era un po' di etichette che c'aveva anche Antinori con questo sfondo così bordeaux sotto. Poi negli anni giustamente oggi mi sembrano ridicole. È così.
Carmelo's just pointing out that in 2012 they actually changed the labeling on the bottles, and you know, looking for a more modern type of expression. Frankly, for those of you at home, you know,
Much of a muchness.
you know, like see,
Because the one
in
behind me is the 11.
in
And
2012, the Morgante thing there went to white, whereas previously
it was
it
red.
was, all right, so knock yourselves out.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm hoping he didn't pay a consultant an enormous amount of money for that. But if he did, God bless him. He's a good man anyway.
Well, maybe that's a good time to ask him the question about the change from IGT to DOC.
Not yet, because that requires a different.
Sì, ha ragione lui, perché siamo passati col 2012, siamo passati da indicazione geografica tipica a DOC Sicilia. Infatti il 2012 è il primo anno della DOC Sicilia per tutti i vini siciliani. Ha ragione, bravo. Bella, attento, bravo.
Apparently you get full marks for being attentive, Robert. Well
done. It wasn't me, I'm just reading Jacob's note.
Teacher's pet. But yes, that did happen. What is the question? Because I have to change my vocabulary to deal with that. Did it change the what?
What was the change from IGT to DOC? What was the...
Allora, niente.
Niente.
Allora, io voglio essere un produttore che vuole dire la verità. Io capisco che sono un eretico perché nel nostro lavoro bisogna dire tante cavolate. Allora, tra IGT e denominazione di origine controllata DOC Sicilia, da un punto di vista di disciplinare non cambia nulla. Noi siamo passati alla denominazione di origine perché l'IGT di oggi si chiama IGT Terre Siciliane. E io sfido a una persona che abita a Singapore cosa significa Terre Siciliane. Già Sicilia è un marchio, è un nome più memorizzabile. Terre Siciliane, da un punto di vista di immagine, non è memorizzabile per uno che non vive in Italia.
So basically the wine itself, the way it's made, did not change. It was an appellation change. It was a branding change for the region and for the whole island itself.
Right.
But the way that this wine is made, as we discussed earlier, did not change one zot.
Got it.
So it's still the same. Carmelo, finalmente 2013.
Allora, il 2013 dal mio punto di vista come profumi, secondo me, per me è quello che piace di più. Forse, ripeto, perché io sono italiano, mi piacciono più i vini più giovani che rispetto a quelli più vecchi. A livello di gusto, senz'altro i vini più vecchi sono un po' più eleganti rispetto al 2013, il 2012 è un po' più spigoloso, ecco. Però ripeto, il mio gusto personale, forse piacciono più i vini più giovani.
Sì. So from Carmelo's perspective, and he's saying again, he's coming to the wines with an Italian palate. For him, this is his favorite out of the lineup. Again, and I find that with all my relatives as well when I go there. They like younger wines. They like the tannins to still be in your face.
Right.
And the challenge is to find what food to have with those tannins.
Got it.
That's the thing. That's an Italian thing.
Right.
So for most Italians, that 04 with its evolved tannins and everything integrated,
Yeah.
it's less interesting to most
Got it.
Italians and the younger ones that are expressing more fruit and structure.
Right. It probably explains why they've got so many porn stars in Parliament as well.
Well, there's less now. There's less now than there used to be.
Oh, that's just deeply disappointing.
The fruits run out and there's nothing but tannin left, unfortunately. It happens.
Oh,
Anyway,
anyway, on that note, maybe we should thank Carmelo for joining us.
well, let me finish up.
Yeah, oh, sorry.
Altri commenti, Carmelo?
No. Mi dispiace solo che siamo arrivati in ritardo, ma no. Non è stata colpa mia. No, altri commenti no. Certo, mi piacerebbe che queste persone che se magari vengono in Sicilia e vogliono venirci a trovare possono tranquillamente venire in cantina, magari per capire meglio i vini che hanno assaggiato lì a Singapore, magari li faccio passeggiare qua in Sicilia, magari hanno un gusto diverso. Non so, se vogliono venire...
Dunque, grazie, ma
piena disponibilità.
I vini sono perfetti per conto mio. Ma anyway, Carmelo has said to everyone's on this tasting, thank you very much for participating. And now that we do have the opportunity to travel, that anyone here on this call is more than welcome to go and visit the winery at Agrigento. And I must say, for those of you who have, and I doubt if anyone's been there apart from us, Agrigento has got some of the most amazing Roman Greco ruins just down the road from it that you would ever see in your life. These things put the Colosseum to shame. They're in such good condition.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. It's just on the side of a road that you're driving along. No one's there. And you've got this magnificent thing that looks like a Parthenon overlooking the sea where it used to be the actual sea level, which was occupied by the Phoenicians at the time. The most amazing part of the world, and I encourage all of you, if you ever get the chance, to take Carmelo up on his offer, because Sicily is something to be really experienced. It's a different world. It's not Italy. It is its own world. And being from northern Italy, my parents spent their whole lives telling me, don't go below Rome, you'll get killed. I've got to tell you that going to Sicily was fantastic. It was a real eye-opener. It's a different world, and it is beautiful. But Carmelo has graciously invited all of you to go there whenever you like. And he's saying that if you come into the winery, he'll open up a couple of few old bottles and run you through it, and perhaps be able to give you a bit more insight into Morgante and what they're all about.
And of course, don't forget to pick up some honey when you're in.
Yes, Lou's got a great contact in the honey business in Sicily.
Carmelo, parliamo per un attimo del contatto che mi hai fatto con l'uomo del miele.
Ah, quello pazzo.
Loco.
Oh, so now he's calling him a madman.
Matto, io ve l'avevo detto, però vi porto a un matto. Poi avete assaggiato il miele o no?
No, abbiamo assaggiato zero, non avevo neanche una goccia di miele.
Neanche una goccia?
No, niente, zero. Ma insomma, the last thing before we leave, and I should mention this, is that Morgante makes some of the best olive oil on the planet. All right. And you guys, those who haven't tried it, you must try it. And even they've now got an independent olive oil register or bunch of tasters. And Morgante has come out as a 5-star olive oil.
I'll actually put it in the link when I send the recording later. It'll link to.
And I'm particularly pleased about that because it justifies our own personal tasting of those olive oils. Because once you've had this stuff, it's really difficult to try other stuff. It really is. It's so good. Awesome. But all right. Now, if there's no other questions, I'll let Carmelo go. Again, apologies for the timing mismatch, but
well, I blame you Australians because you started the whole daylight saving thing. If you didn't change it, the rest of the world would be okay. I'm sure it's the Southern Hemisphere that invented daylight saving.
Yeah, and we obviously caused apartheid as well, right?
That's an entirely different topic.
Ok.
Thanks,
Carmelo,
everybody.
grazie mille.
Grazie a voi. Grazie a
Speriamo
voi.
di vedersi presto. Ciao, grazie.
Dai, ci vediamo al prossimo Winitaly, sicuramente.
Magari,
O provai.
magari.
Oppure anche provare, no, anche perché,
No, provai no.
Anche perché in Italia ormai il problema del Covid è un problema abbastanza superato, insomma si sta facendo
Sì, ma
tantissimo, l'Italia è
qui
all'avanguardia, quindi...
purtroppo qui ci sono ancora complicazioni, allora non proviamo proprio a viaggiare liberi, insomma.
Ma comunque
magari
in Italia è ancora a marzo.
ci vediamo a Verona, va bene?
Sì. Comunque qualsiasi cosa avete bisogno, chiamatemi, anche i tuoi amici, clienti, se devono venire in Sicilia, hanno bisogno dei consigli prima di venire, noi siamo disponibili, fanno un'email, ci giri un'email tu, se possibile rispondiamo, così evitiamo cerchiamo di dare le informazioni migliori possibili, perché capisco che è un'isola grande, difficile e non facile da viaggiare in Sicilia.
Va bene, grazie, sei molto gentile. Robert, we're done.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Mille.
Ciao, buonanotte,
Grazie.
ragazzi.
Ciao.
Ciao.
A presto.